Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Refracted Curvature, The Adam Meakin, Chocolate Saying, Brian's Logic, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello, 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 hello.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Very good to have you all. Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle from a curved baseline?
What?
Hello.
Any?
What's an angle again?
Two straight lines meeting at a vertex.
So how could you ever get that from a curved line?
That's why I said what?
Say what?
Should
I
be more
said hello.
hyper-specific. Two lines meeting at a vertex. I think we argued about this the other day. The straight bit's redundant. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
The idea of Earth curvature is contradictory to the celestial sphere model.
Boom! Have it, fundies. You bet your ass it is.
That was quick.
Any evidence of the R value? Earth radius. Let's have it, John. Let's have it.
That would be
It's
contradictory to the
presupposed.
celestial. That would be contradictory to the celestial sphere model.
Who's rumpusing you? Pound says it's Neil.
Nope, it was Owen.
It was Arwin. Get out.
What do you mean rumpusing? You're just answering simultaneously.
How you doing, Arwin?
With
You have a
your
good
name
show?
being John.
Hold on, Adam. Do you have a good show, Arwin?
Yeah, very good show.
Subscribe today. Flat Earth Early Bird. ARWIJN. It's the channel name. Starts before the
I got
show.
a
Couple of
question.
hours. Go ahead, 10th.
I got a question for Arwen. Is his middle name John?
No.
Okay, so he said simultaneously because you said John, say it again, and then Arwen jumped in simultaneously.
It was a good show, Owen, weren't it? It was.
What is-
I caught a little bit. Dingleberry, you were discussing. There's dissension, I think, in what the word means in English, whether it means a hemorrhoid or the kind of tufty bits you get around a dog's bum.
Oh, it's both.
Ew. No. I refuse to put that imagery up. There was a discussion about it. My show is just called The Season of Dingleberry Earth Picking.
If you have
The
been affected
Dingleberry's
by...
dead now.
Go on,
Adam,
sorry.
I think you've just, Adam, I think you've diagnosed why my dog won't sit on command now. I'll have to check that.
It's got dingleberries.
Go on, whoever it was
Yeah,
from
the-
Discord. Go on, whoever it was from Discord. Clearly not. Go on, John. Sorry.
The idea that there's a dingleberry on the celestial sphere, that's contrary to the celestial sphere model.
We need to come up with a
Of
new
course
title.
it is. But
We need to come up with a new title for the globe Earth that I described in the pre-show. So you've got an equatorial plane, and then the arc of the heavens, if you will, above it, with the perspective representation of the stars as they present them to yourself in the centre of the equatorial plane. But then they draw around that not redundant, a surplus to requirement sphere, but it has the equatorial plane dissecting it at the equator line. Well, that's not Dingleberry Earth, right? The Dingleberry Earth is a tangent plane to a sphere below, prior to them moving the light down with justifications of parallel light rays, right? But pre-moving the globe wrapped around an equatorial plane down to Dingleberry Earth position, we need to name that. What can that be called? It's like Burger Earth.
Burger.
Do you know what I mean by Burger Earth? It's like, it's the bun. The Earth is the bun. And then you've got the equatorial plane. But that doesn't really suggest the extension of the burger patty to infinitum. Is that the right word?
Nathan, I posted a bunch of slides we couldn't get to in the pre-show, and it's
Maybe it's
on
hot
this
pocket.
I win. Go ahead,
and it's
Ted.
on this, and it's on this subject, and maybe the pictures will give someone an idea of what to call it. There's, if you want to go to the first
I
one,
don't know
which
if
is
this first one is this a. I don't know what to say. Any comments? What do you say? I don't know. Go ahead, Ted.
Well, I had a suggestion, and not named 10th, I know. But what about Hot Pocket Earth? Hot Pocket Earth, right?
Hot Pocket doesn't have. Okay, there's a juicy filling, but there's no. You need something that's got the middle bit. My patty in my Burger Earth needs to extend out infinitely.
But a big whopper lie.
Big what?
waffle
sorry,
lie.
No, the Whopper. The Burger King do a big Whopper burger, don't they? A big Whopper lie. Big whooping Whopper lie.
I don't like it.
All right, let's go through the picture. See if it.
I don't know. Let's take a vote from the audience. Quick straw poll. Do we continue talking about burgers, or shall we actually let 10th do his presentation he's been trying to do since the pre-show? Go ahead, 10th.
Well, I'm just going to say what it is based on the readings and findings from the books, and then we can all, collaborate afterwards. So here's a picture I found out because how we've shown it before shows the whole Earth as a dingleberry under a plane. This one shows a disk as a plane and only half the Earth underneath it, which means they've cut the top half and said, we don't really need that because that's a curved surface. All our measurements come from the equatorial plane as seen here with the purple edged disk. So here it is. This is where all the measurements derive from, a flat plane. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here they've got the celestial pole. The north and south is going to be obvious. If we say that top one is the north, the one at the bottom would be the south. And then you've got an equator, which would be that top half of that Earth that we just showed without, the upper part. But the equatorial plane of that previous picture would be that equator. So it would extend from the Earth all the way to the celestial sphere in infinite distance. Of course, celestial spheres in imaginary concave, another ball with the Earth in the middle of it. And so this whole perimeter of the equatorial plane is just not the Earth. So it goes all the way to the edge of the celestial sphere. Okay, next. Here, you can see a little bit better diagram of that. So you got the north celestial pole on top, the south celestial pole. They match up with the supposed Earth North Pole, supposed Earth South Pole, but they don't show the Earth in this picture. They just show that disk again. In the first picture, I showed you the bottom half of a dingleberry with that disk. This, they even got rid of that. And then look at where the angle emanates from. The center of a plane. And here's a 30-degree angle. Because you can't get it from a curved surface. Next slide. So here's another one.
Isn't it?
What's that?
It's not a plane. It's just the observer. That whole image is because you've taken the Earth out. It shows what it truly is.
It's coming to
The
that.
center is not the center of a sphere. It's the center of your eyes.
Yeah, it's going to come to that in a minute. You'll see it. But good point. So the next one is a black and white version of it, and then it's called the horizon plane here. Well, all the way to the celestial sphere, that's infinite. It's all flat. And yet you tell me I'm using a sextant from the surface where it's curved? Impossible. Okay, next slide. I think, Adam, this one you can comment on. Visible half of the sky. It's got that dingleberry underneath it. Is this what you're talking about?
Is this the one Nathan's referring to? That's
It's the one after the black and white one that should be on the screen.
Well, no, this is a combination. Sorry to interrupt, right? So I'll just clarify. So on the left-hand side of the picture where you've got Z for zenith and your observer position with south and north, right? That plane is the plane that has a dingleberry Earth beneath it. However, the way this is being depicted is to assert, after this is being used as a plane to acquire an angle, that you're actually going to transpose that angle down to the centre of CEQ, which I assume is just whatever they've abbreviated, the celestial equatorial plane, or something along those lines, which is this circle. Now that circle is a plane that dissects the centre of the sphere Earth. And if I just go back to this image, this is the point that the angle is going to be measured from, out beyond the sphere to the arc of the heavens, based on the tool that you're going to be measuring and the angle you're going to be measuring with it. So you're at the centre of this Earth when the measurement is taken to, let's just say, this is the star, whatever this comet-looking thing is. Well, from the centre, your angle will come out to it, and then along the CEQ line, as they've got it labelled with a circle around it. So, just for clarity, yes, this then has a top half, let's call it the top half of the bun, and the bottom half, let's call it the bottom half of the bun, and then the actual equatorial plane that you'll be using for the angle measurements when referencing the centre of this sphere bun with this giant pate dicing it in the middle. There we go. Carry on,
Nathan, they do this quite often by angling it this way. But please notice the green dome with the green equatorial plane matching the one with the Z that's on top of the dingleberry. So you see that's that half of that celestial sphere that this has got to match. So it's a sphere within a sphere kind of a deal. So this is for confusion. It's very sublime, but you need a flat plane to get an angle measurement from. You need a horizontal. You can't do it off a curved surface. So because they have in their model many meridians, they're just showing it this way. That doesn't mean it is this way.
I was just going to say, look, that's flat.
Yes.
Well, they put a celestial sphere in a celestial sphere, and this one, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So let's move on. So now you've got a half image. This one would be, again, it's labeled North Celestial Pole, the zenith, the meridians. This one doesn't even show a bottom half of a dingleberry. It's just the top half.
no, but it states in the middle, doesn't it? What I was saying.
Gone.
States what's actually going off there. Observer.
Yeah, the observer, yes.
Center of a Scotch egg or anything. It's just the observer, where the observer is positioned. That's how the celestial sphere manifests above the observer.
But the observer's on a flat plane.
Always.
As shown there.
Yeah. All right.
It's a flat
Next
plane
slide.
burger.
Well, the sphere we're seeing is the sphere of perspective of his eye.
No,
That's why it's directed.
right. It's confusion that's now become apparent just by your last comment. There is two spheres, right? What we have on screen now, as Adam's just detailed, is the plane we stand on with an observer view of the sky. Now, I say specifically observer view because the sky, in terms of how this is actually going to be calculable, is parallel to the ground based on how you're going to be utilising it. But given that parallel position of the sky and the lights in it to the flat ground you're standing on, when you look at something further away, it will drop towards the horizon, right? You notice how on the outside edge of this flat plane we've got a horizon line? That's where this arc meets, because that's the arc of your perspective view on a plane to the sky. In other words, there is no globe in this perspective view, right? Now, when we move over to this depiction, the representation that was actually given to you is the secondary side slanted dome of the sky. So this, did you say, I'm colourblind, is this green, did you say? I think you said green. This green dome here is the actual representation of this dome of the sky, right? And this plane that it's got marked as horizon with the observer point in the middle matches up with this line around the outside edge. So you can probably see where I'm going with this. The sphere inside it is surplus to requirements, because all you're going to do is move the angle down to this plane to actually do the angles and make them work off the plane that you're actually using. Ergo, the sphere inside is redundant, and not redundant, I keep saying that, is surplus to requirements. This bit, however, the representation of the sky, and this bit, the representation of the plane that you're standing on, is actually what's used. So when we move back, this is my actual point I'm getting to, when we look at this view, this in no way, shape or form represents some sphere of the Earth. The only bit that's representing the Earth in this view is the bit marked observer with a flat plane marked horizon surrounding it. This is a flat plane, and this is the sky. So where's the globe bit? Well, there isn't a globe bit.
Well said.
Yeah, and the flat plane matches the flat sky. There is no sphere on the ground or even in the sky. That's the important bit for me. I had to distinguish. You're constantly trying to, because that's how you see it, reconcile that it's curving over your head like a dome, Neil. You know what I mean? But it's not. It's flat. It's only the shape of our eyes that give the impression.
That's what I was trying to get at in the pre-show in terms of the building. So you've got a building and your back's up against it, and it's 100 stories high. You look up, that's your zenith. Then you turn around to face the building and walk backwards away from it. Now, as you do so, you take out your protractor and see that at a certain distance, it's dropped towards the horizon. The top of the building that you were seeing directly above you is now lower. Well, that is a 1 degree drop towards the horizon. Now, in terms of the height, the top of this building's never going to change, but your view to it will drop towards the horizon as you back away. Now, if you plot that out with a row of buildings running out towards the horizon, the view you get of those buildings, the tops of them, is arched over the top of you from left to right. Now, bearing in mind, I should have stated this in this example, all of those buildings are the same height. You could do the same thing if you were stood underneath a bridge, a very, very long suspension bridge. Imagine yourself underneath it. As you look to your left and to your right, it will arc over you in your perspective view, and you can measure the angles to it holding a protractor underneath the bridge. But every height of the bridge all along the top of you is all the same height. But from your point of view, you've got a dome of the bridge above you? No, you haven't. That's just your perspective view. And it's no different with the stars, but when projected out from one point, the stars that are further away over a piece of land over there has dropped towards the horizon in your view. Ergo, you end up with a dome representation of how the stars present themselves to you from a single observer point with an equal distance circle all the way around you. So, as Adam has said, and we've stressed it 3 times, that means that you've got a flat line of lights presented to you.
So it's all about perspective then?
Yes, it always was. We just didn't dig deep enough when we called the perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator as such. Goes much deeper, doesn't it? Exciting, isn't it? This is how we got swindled. I love it. I'm way past
Very
it, though.
educational.
For those of you who are crapping your pants because you're a globe believer and you can't quite, and you're smart enough to follow along with this stuff, then you might suddenly have a cold shiver. For me, I just laugh how long past this. It's just a folly almost to me now. I don't know about you, Adam. You're probably more into it for the mathematical brilliance of it. But to me, it's just an interesting folly how they duped the current Western world society into this religion. It's just an amusing folly to me.
Yeah, it's a challenge, particularly celestial navigation, trying to understand it, because it's all about transposing numbers, and it interests me as to show how much I got mugged off and how I'm described there. Even now, trying to think that it is a flat plane, but the way in which the number and the data has always been presented was to form a ball. So it's very interesting unpicking that mathematically and in your own head. You see how deep the programming is. Every single bit of this is building a ball, but none of it ever represented a ball, as we're finding out. Yet that's what was insinuated to us.
Okay, we're gonna carry on with 10th presentation.
I have a little bit of contention before we go on with 10th.
You can, but just give me 2 seconds to plug me. So as I do plug it at the beginning of the show, there's the least live viewers when I do so in every single intro. But there's a live stream queue. So if, as it is the case now, we've got more participants than the room allows, you can just join the queue, and obviously I've got to pay attention, or one of my mods will pay attention and move you in and then take you off mute, so you can join in the discussion. This is an open forum, open to the public while the show is live. So while we're discussing this and debating amongst ourselves, if you just feel like you want to challenge us on anything we're saying, you can step into the arena and just tell us that we are wrong, and then we will discuss that with you. 10th and Brian, if you want to work it out amongst yourselves what I should now do, should 10th carry on?
It'll only be a moment, 10th.
No, let Brian go. Let Brian go.
Yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Thank you. It's just going to be on what you said, Nathan. We don't view, our perspective doesn't allow us to view stars in the sky or anything as in a curve. We don't know more than we view streetlights in a row in a curve. The curve part is not from our perspective. It's added in due to the use of the arc scale. That's why they have the curve added in. It's an added in thing that isn't real. We don't have perspective that causes a curve. We don't have that. What we have is perspective that causes things in the distance to change in angle or size. You know, as a basic, we don't view things in a curve. We view things as a change in elevation or an apparent change in elevation in the distance or whatever from where our feet would be, blah blah blah. But we don't view a curve. The curve part is added in due to the arc scale. It was added in. Not real. Nobody sees things in a curve.
Indeed. 10th, I'm still on the yellowish.
Yeah, go to the next one. I know the one you're on. Go to the very next one.
Okay.
All right, so celestial sphere equator 7 points. This is the one we're on. So he says here, now draw and label the same items on the diagram below. So basically a little work sheet on how to figure out. So I just took this image out because they're always referencing it on the flat plane. So see that disc that the stick figure is on. Just keep that in mind. We've shown it already. Now they build a ball around that. They make that the equator of the Earth, and then they build the celestial sphere around that, as you've seen already. But just realize this is it right here. This is how you get angles off of a flat plane. Next slide. So here it's a more elaborate one with all of the meridians and latitude lines on the celestial sphere, which is right ascension and declination, versus longitude, latitude on Earth, but pretty much the same purpose, grid lines. And then as you can see here, they've got the emanating from the center of the Earth, that equator, that equatorial plane, all the way to the celestial sphere. And then the angle is to the declination, so of this star there. So there's your right angle, okay? This is why you minus from 90. And in this model, it gets everyone thinking they live on a globe, except you can't get an angle from that surface of that image that's the globe there. So they got to go to the center, cut it in half, i.e. the very first photo I showed, which is the Earth cut in half. So you just got to get over the imagery that is brainwashing you because you can't get an angle from a curved baseline. So
Okay.
how are they doing celestial navigation? Yeah, go on.
Okay, so this is an even better example. I'm glad these are both in the same set of slides. So in this depiction, right, we're going to be drawing out an angle, although they've managed to rub out the angle through the sphere to the centre of it, right, on this particular depiction. But nevertheless, right, you've got your angle measured from the centre of their claimed sphere. And this particular sphere takes up 100th of the scale of this particular depiction. So out to the star, 90 degrees to the flat plane that we were talking about with this diagram, right, with the yellow one. Why is it the case that in this diagram the sphere can be absolutely ginormous with a relatively small by scale arc of the heavens around it with a flat plane that's going to be used with the Dingleberry transposition to the centre of it, right? But this globe Earth is much larger than this globe Earth. Why? Well, because it's irrelevant. It's surplus to requirements. It makes no difference if it's a giant globe Earth in the middle, with you measuring an angle out along this flat plane with the green dome above it, because you're going to be measuring it out to a point on this perspective representation of the star that you're looking at. Not to this tangent plane, to the centre of the presupposed spherical Earth with a random size. Well, that's not using the sphere. It's totally surplus to requirements. Again, in this one, same thing. Measuring an angle to a star, sod all to do with the globe Earth I'm going to dissect, even though they've rubbed out the line, and everything to do with this flat plane. So it doesn't matter. This could be all the way out to here, and you'd still be dissecting it and ignoring it completely. The sphere in the middle, I mean. Doesn't matter if it comes out to here, here, here. It's never used. The plane's being used to measure the angle. Yeah, that's your equatorial plane. So it makes no odds whatsoever. And that's why I said that the burger doesn't represent it. In this one it does. So it's just a whopper, right? The equatorial plane is just the size of an oversized beef burger compared to the bun Earth. Right? But then when it doesn't get across the point that it's so surplus to requirements that you can draw it at any size you like, and it makes sod all difference to the angle you're measuring, because the angle's coming off a flat plane. So this little tiny globe Earth in the middle of the slide we're currently on in Tenth's presentation, you know, look how big the burger bun is for that. You know what I mean?
Can I say something real quick?
If it's about burgers, definitely.
Is it fair to say that the globe is irrelevant?
In this, it is. Yeah, it's entirely surplus to requirements. There's no need for it. It doesn't do anything useful, does it? You tell me in this process, or as depicted on screen right now on the slide that Tenth's got on, with south celestial pole, north celestial pole, vernal equinox, and the declination angle being measured from the centre of the sphere that isn't being used. The plane is. You tell me what use this is. The globe in the middle, I mean.
To keep people in bondage. That's all.
Well, I'd like to add to what Neil is saying. That's why they always show, and we've shown those slides, they have to draw a tangent plane on the surface of that irrelevant globe because it's not being used for anything.
Yeah, so they say that the angle that is being used, which comes from the centre, a la this diagram, right? The angle goes to the centre of the sphere. Well, they say, well, no, what we do is we draw out a great big flat plane that's got a globe Earth dangling below it, and then when we match it up to the measurements we're actually going to be utilising, we'll take it to the centre and have a giant plane extending out beyond the centre of that, and we'll call that the equatorial plane. And you're like, why? You can just take the angle from your position to a star with a flat baseline and then plot it out on a flat map to give you your fix when you do 2 or 3 of them. Well, that in no way requires or necessitates anything being done with a sphere. And the sphere that they would suggest has been derived from this angle measurement to Polaris in the first place. This representation's been bastardized into a sphere. You can't make it work and function the other way. It doesn't work. So you end up with dingleberry Earth and tangent planes being drawn, and then a claim that the light's all coming in parallel, so it's perfectly acceptable to assume you're standing in the centre of the rock that's spherical to make it all work. It's absurd. And the reason it's absurd is because the model's been derived from a flat plane in the first place, and when you navigate on it, that's what you navigate with. So there's no sphere involved.
Yeah, we're going to see that 2 slides from now. Let's go to the next slide.
Well, just a quick shout out to Mike. Is it Mike 808? Yes, it is indeed. Mike 808 for hitting the super chat. Really appreciate your support. And there's more than 100 people watching. We hit 100 a while back. But thank you very much for everyone who shared the show. That's why we've got 100 people here. So if you've just joined, a very warm welcome to you. Thank you very much for joining the live stream. Feel free to jump into the live stream queue, as this chap has done, Globus. And you'll get moved into the live show if you did want to challenge us on anything we're saying. Please share the show. As I said, that's why we've got a significant audience, because the people who are regulars here do smash the share button. So if you are new, please share. Go ahead, 10th.
All right, so you need to go to the next slide, which is after that last one. With this one, local celestial sphere. This is a celestial sphere as referenced by a local observer. So Adam, you can jump in after this. At the center with the true horizon as the equator. The true horizon as the equator. Now think about that. If you're on the top of a ball, the true horizon, is that the equator? Huh. All right. Zenith is straight up. Now they're straight down. The local meridian circle runs from north to zenith to south. To prime vertical circle runs from east to zenith to west. Now, local celestial sphere for the ground observer. Where's the curve? Where is that curve? How come that's a flat disk? Anything, Adam, on your local observer? No, Adam? Is anybody there? Is anybody home?
I'll go back to the hangout to see what's going on.
Well, it has to be flat, 10th.
He's still here. He's doing something. He's at work, so...
Okay, no problem. Okay, but this is what Adam meant by local observer. So this is what it looks like. All right, next slide.
He's not there, and I'll take it he's not coming back. So you need the point re-stressing, because otherwise he'll get lost in that little bit of... Yeah. So Adam's point was to say, I can't remember which slide he said it on now. I think it was this blue one. It's like, well, all this is depicting is the observer, as it would be. There's no need for a sphere in the middle of this particular diagram. And then we got to the yellowish one where Adam's like, yeah, there it is, right? Observer. This is all about your observation and how you see things. And then we move on to the next one, and it's like, well, even though they've cut out the line that moves to the centre of the globe that they've slapped in the middle of your observer view that's not being used for anything useful, you've still got an observer view with your equatorial plane represented as the view that you get out to the heavens with this giant dome around it, right? So that's where we're at. I just wanted to re-stress it, as that's where Adam was intended to come in, but he's obviously got waylaid with something. So
yeah, no problem.
Go ahead, Adam, 10th.
Yeah. Go to the next slide. I think one of your favorite ones.
Straighten this out. Did you not get my straightened out version?
Well, no, I'm still using the original, but if you want to put yours up,
no, it's fine. Carry on.
No, I'll let you do it, because I think you caught on to this. But there's that plane right there, so that surplus dingleberry Earth is not necessary, right?
Yeah, if they don't get quizzed on this is just how it would be used, because essentially you've got a completely surplus to requirement dingleberry Earth, and then the view that you get, as you can see from a guy on his back in the depiction, is to his zenith, which is directly above him when he's lying on his back. And then let's say there's a star over here, it would be the angle he would measure along the flat baseline to the star to get its GP on the ground. Well, on the ground is the plane that's being drawn out above. That's what's going to be used if you're doing celestial navigation. So in this case, you've got dingleberry Earth that's completely useless. Now, upon pointing that out to an anti-flat earther or a globe believer, they say, well, no, once we've taken this angle from a flat plane that isn't the ground that I believe the world is, I can move that angle that isn't acquirable off the surface of a sphere down to the centre and actually claim that that's my equatorial, i.e. the outside edge of my sphere, plane. that extends out infinitely beyond the sphere that is now completely redundant. But I'm sitting in the middle of it with this angle that I've taken from a flat plane that has nothing to do with the surface I'm now claiming when I move the angle down. And then you go, well, why have you moved the angle down? Well, because all light comes in parallel. And you go, have you ever looked at a sun? Ever? Because no, it does not. Oh, yeah, it does. Because if I put it in orthographic Muppet view where you see the side of your own head, and I assume that the sun, based on a model that's been derived from a flat plane elevation angle acquisition into a sphere, and then that presupposition being used with the presupposition that Venus is the same size as Earth gives me a distance to the sun that's absolutely astronomical, therefore all light is parallel, therefore it's perfectly acceptable for me to take an angle off a flat plane that isn't the surface of Earth that I think I'm standing on and move it to the centre of it because all light's parallel. Perfectly acceptable. You all following along with this? Yeah, because that's what you have to do if you're on a sphere, bearing in mind that none of it's necessary and you can just do it on this bit depicted in this diagram, which is a flat plane with the perspective representation of the stars that you see in your periphery represented on a dome. I thank you.
Okay, there's a lot more to this slide. I'd like to elaborate, if I may. See that guy laying on his back, looking up to the sky in the center of that disk and that tangent plane? That's where have we seen this before? Isn't it shown as a line on top of a sphere? And then they say this corresponds to the center if light comes in parallel. That's how they've done it. But watch this. That horizon extends to the infinite celestial sphere. There is no curve. There is no geometric dip to a curving Earth here. That means everything from his back to all sides, he can't see any stars underneath that disk. They haven't risen up yet. It's a whole flat plane all the way. Where's the curve?
There isn't
Shouldn't
one.
this be No, there isn't one. But if you live on the ball, this should match what the ball would do.
That's
But
correct.
but the ball doesn't do any of that because the ball is a surplus. All they did was say, look, let's call the Earth a ball. This is how it's done on top. It goes all the way. So how do we do that on the ball? Well, we can't do it at the top, so let's take it to the center, because then we cut the Earth in half, i.e. the first image I showed you, and we get the same results, because if we say light is from stars and suns are so far away that they come in parallel, then we can use a corresponding angle, and we'll get away with it. Sorry, you got lots of problems here. Number one, that plane that we see extends all the way to the celestial sphere, and there's no bend in it. So you can't use the celestial sphere for your ball. This is where John comes in. Pretty embarrassing for them once you study celestial navigation.
Yep. It's using
Okay, so
a plane and
the plane extends all the way with no curve. That's why they have a tangent plane that doesn't curve on top of a ball every time they want to show an angle.
On your last slide?
Yeah. All right. Celestial sphere image, courtesy of Lunar and Planetary Institute. What is the celestial sphere? In astronomy and navigation, the celestial sphere is an imaginary sphere of arbitrarily large radius, concentric with Earth. Do you see how they do it? All objects in the observer's sky can be thought as of a project upon the inside surface of a celestial sphere, as if it were the underside of a dome. The celestial sphere is a practical tool for spherical astronomy, allowing observers to plot positions of objects in the sky when their distances are unknown or unimportant. So there's your distance reference. So what did they do here? They took a flat Earth.
Oh, no, sorry.
They took a flat Earth, right? They took a flat Earth, and they said, how can we make it a globe? And they figured out how to trick people. That's all it is. But when it comes to actual measurements, you can't get an angle measurement from a curved baseline.
That's the key word, trick.
Yeah, it is a trick. It's a magic trick to turn a flat angle measurement into the curve of the tool you measured it with. taking
So in this,
flat
sorry.
baseline and making it spherical.
so wrapping it up, in this last slide, you can see the celestial equator is matching the Earth's equator and extends all the way to the far reaches of an infinite celestial sphere. If you go one slide before, which is the black and white one, you could see that instead of matching the equator on this one, it's on top of a ball. The ball is a surplus, doesn't belong, can't work with celestial navigation. End of presentation.
Thank you, Ted.
The ball is irrelevant.
It is. It is. It's useless in this regard. And at the last page of the Fundy written globe-believing celestial navigation manuals, they will sometimes disclaim that with a lot of tricky maths, you can transpose the flat Earth elevation angle measurement and utilization of that flat plane to gain your fix, i.e. your position if you're lost, into spherical systems that have been derived from the angles in the first place. And the disclaimer will say it's not done. It could be, it's complicated, but it isn't. And it's not required. It isn't how it is done. So yeah, we can admirably go through this stuff because it's what our opponents on the anti-flat Earth side throw back at us. But as I say, this comes on page 57 of a 57-page document that will describe acquiring 90 degrees to the GP of a star on a flat plane with the arc of the heavens and the angles to them, giving you those measurements on the plane to find where you are. They make it very explicit. So yeah, we're going through the minutiae because this is what you'll come up against if you just throw it out there without knowing that, yeah, they do have a way, a very complicated way, of going from this to this to this to this. That's a complicated process. And by the time you get to here, with a tangent plane and a dingleberry Earth and a transposition and parallel light rays, your head's going to be spinning. So this is, this is high-level stuff. But for anybody who's like, we need more information, we need more input of flat earthers, and I want to know more about how it's come to pass and why did they lie to us? Okay, well, while we can't divine the thoughts and motivations of the people who've done this, we can show you how they've done it. This is how Earth as a flat plane has been turned into a sphere. This is the birth
Nathan,
of the globe.
Just to top it off, I got two more slides and then we'll finish, because this has to do with sunlight coming in parallel and part of yesterday's discussion as well.
Okay, I got your dog cam up.
Yeah, so this is a doggy cam or dog cam. You can see a hot spot of the sun there. That's very interesting. If light is supposed to be coming in parallel, and yesterday we had a caller say that he was told by a ball earther that the only one ray of sunlight is hitting the Earth. Well, why isn't the whole Earth the same image here, this hot spot? The whole Earth should be this hot spot then. But it's obviously, this is where the GP of the sun is. The sun is directly over that spot. And you'll be able to get an angle to it from a flat plane. Go to the next slide.
Wait, that doesn't look like a super GP to me.
Super GP. There we go. This next slide is my personal picture I took. I took this picture. You see divergent corpuscular rays here. Now, where is this parallel rays that they need for the for the correspondence of an angle from a tangent plane on top to match the center of the Earth equator plane? It doesn't exist.
They're not there.
Celestial navigation dies instantly, the globe version of it, when there is no parallel sun rays to deceive the audience that you can have a corresponding angle from the center as well as the top. The center is flat, the top is curved, but they need a tangent plane at the top to even get there. So they are adding in stuff, saying the sun does something the sun doesn't do, and we all observed divergent rays never parallel.
Perfect. Thank you, Tenth.
You got it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So yeah, I'm going to label this show "The Birth of the Globe," because that's what we're going through, basically, isn't it? We've gone beyond the point where we can pummel a fundy into oblivion by just asking them how they acquire an elevation angle from a curved baseline. That's the end of the argument in this regard. But it does open open it up for us to have endless discussions, which are fascinating, with people, I think, again, discussed in the pre-show, with like minds going, well, how did this actually happen? And I forgot who it was now. Was it Flat Earth Data that came in that showed us the sort of 1800s navigation books where they were showing how to get more accurate horizon measurements, and they'd basically got the equations for globe Earth and the geometric horizon, but with absolutely no mention of Earth curve. Just talking about how to better accurately estimate where your horizon's going to be at a given distance based on a given height. You're like, oh, this all sounds familiar. No mention of Earth curve, though. None. You're like, oh, right. So that's where they got the maths then. You're like, just recycle. It's so psychopathic. Just recycle and regurgitate stuff over and over again. So it doesn't surprise me the world's run by psychopaths. So for them to
like that.
Regurgitate
The
and
birth of the
recycle
globe.
it. Sorry, Neil, go ahead.
I said I like that. The birth of the globe.
That's what we've detailed on this show.
Well, I remember
Can I ask something about the
chocolate.
curve adjacent thing?
Say again about curved adjacent thing.
Yeah, so I was just trying to think about what if there's a curve that you can acquire an elevation angle from, and my mind is just thinking I remember, I don't know if it's called a parabola, but I remember in high school we did some graph where we made a curve, and then the curve, once it starts extending out past the vertex of the curve, it gets infinitely closer to the y-axis, and it appears to be straight, but it's actually curving. So now if you took a protractor and put it on there, you could measure an angle. So
no, you can't. So
it would be it appears straight though, right? If you put your thing on it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate what you're saying in terms of how you perceive that which is drawn as a parabola as being straight at a certain point. Okay, I get you. However, what is an angle?
Yeah, it's two straight lines.
Stop. Does that which you have just described, Derek, meet that criteria or not?
It doesn't, but it appears to as an observer.
Appears, and that's what we're dealing with when we're dealing with the absolutes in terms of this sort of geometry and mathematics. Is it a good enough? No, it's a very binary thing in this regard.
I think you would put your protractor on it. But you could create a 90 on it. It would appear to be a 90. So
appear to be, and it being are different things, though. So in modelling terms, this is something that Rob Durham did. It doesn't matter how big you make it. He's done it scale model with a sphere. You try and get an angle from it, and it just says syntax error because it's two straight lines. There's no, oh, well, it's almost good enough. I mean, this is the interesting part of our discussion currently, Eric, because our opponents try and argue with me, like you are now, about how flat it could be. Well, it's almost flat enough to do celestial navigation. You can take it as being flat. It's like, hello, shouldn't you be arguing with me about how curved it is, rather than appealing to me about how flat your sphere fundy belief is? Don't appeal to me about how flat it could be, when it needs to be and is an angle that's being measured. Very clearly defined, very binary thing. You've either got it or you ain't. You ain't if you're on a sphere. So what's your solution? Oh, it's really flat, my sphere. Look how flat my sphere is. It's idiotic.
Hey, Nathan, do you have or remember what episode that was where the guy had the CAD program and he tried to model?
It wasn't a program.
Earth?
I don't think it was. I mean, we did show it, but it's Rob Durham's video, so just go to Rob Durham's YouTube channel.
Rob Durham,
DURHAM.
okay.
Or you'll have guys like Richie Ruggs in chat say, Earth is round, but the ground is flat. Thank you very much.
Earth is round, but the ground is flat. No, that's double speak. Yeah? The ground is flat. Yeah, that's the bit we deal with. The Earth, well, you're superimposing the word Earth, meaning ground or soil, into globe Earth, your model. So the globe Earth is spherical, but the ground we actually stand on is flat. Richie Ruggs is in cognitive pain at the moment. He's claims to be a normie, but he's here out of intrigue telling us how stupid we are, but simultaneously doing a lot of the examples I'm giving while I'm giving them, which is to say he's appealing to us for how flat his sphere is. How amusing.
He's not
The
only
globe
here
is
on this
definitely
show,
getting
on
flatter.
every show you put up, he's there.
Yeah, bless him. Subscribe today. Become a member, Richie. Support this channel. You're obviously addicted.
Can I present what or talk about what I'm going to
I'm
present?
so
here,
sorry,
Nathan?
Brian. I completely forgot. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I want to be a couple of minutes. I just want to get in there before the end of the live show. Okay. So if we look at here, this is the celestial sphere model, okay? We have this line here that's an angle, would be an observer's viewing angle from this point here. So if we imagine this one up here, just make it a bit bigger. Let's make this one, right? And color it just different, right? If you imagine this red one here is Polaris. This person standing at the north pole, and Polaris is to their 90, let's say, right? They will have an angle all the way down to 0, which would be at the equator line of the sun. Now, that would be 5,400 nautical miles, right, of distance from here out to here, right? Now, it may not be fully represented here, but that's what it is, right? Because the reason it's not fully represented is because this arc is not real. It's not in reality. It's not there in reality. But either way, the point is that this would be 90 up, or this is up to Polaris, and this would be 5,400 minutes of degree out to 0, which would be what would be the equator, right? The equator line. But what is not, because people are concentrating on this curved part outside, what's not being seen is that's their angle of view to a star. The star at this point here, when it gets to the equator, is then at basically what would be mean sea level for them. So if they're standing looking at a star, someone's standing looking at a star, and there's another star at the zenith, doesn't have to be Polaris. So at our zenith, there's a star, and then there's another star at the horizon. Then what they're seeing is that star basically meeting mean sea level, right? That's what they're seeing, right? Now, the celestial sphere model shows this arc, which is just based on the arc of the arc scale within the sextant and that. But in reality, what you're dealing with is a view 90 above you and all the way down to 0, right? Or out to 0, let's just say. But the same then, if you take away the circle, it's exactly the same, right? There is your 90, there's a star. I just make this a bit bigger for the audience. I'm going somewhere with this, just in case you think I'm not. This green one here, that is your 90, is a star above you. And you have an angle all the way down to 0, right? If you're standing with your feet just at the ocean, this 0 will be mean sea level for you, right? So, in reality, this green star here, right, will be at your 0. This red star here will be maybe 15 or 20, 15, maybe 10 degree angle to you. And this purple star down here, you won't see it all. You will not see that, because you can't see down through the ocean, right? You will only ever see as far as this. And that would mean that this star's GP position is 5,400 nautical miles away from you, right? But that's because you're going from a 90 above you down to that. Now I'm going somewhere with this, right? This is about the celestial sphere. So the problem with this for the globe is this. They need you to be seeing stars. If I move this, they need you to be seeing stars that are all the way down here. But you'll never see anything like that. And out here, let's just say what they do is they do this and they move all these stars way far away. But it don't matter. You will never see anything below. If you're standing with your feet on the ocean or a boat close to the ocean, you will never see anything below mean sea level. You will never see below mean sea level. So anything that's down below mean sea level, you will never see, right? You'll never ever see that. You'll only ever see things that are at mean sea level. That is your zero. That's how it's defined. Your zero is defined as whatever your horizon is. Right? That means you'll never see anything below your horizon point. Regardless of how far away it is from you, if it's below that point, you're not going to see it. End of story. You will not see that. So this proves that there is no possible, like that. This proves that even the celestial sphere model has absolutely nothing to do with a globe Earth. Because even in the celestial sphere model, it shows a 90 to 0, something you can't have on the surface of a sphere. You can't have a 90 to 0. Can't have that.
That requirement, Brian, to see from where you are to at 90 degrees down, when you have to move the triangle back down again for me. Yeah, so down that is part of the claim that they're making, that this is what you're able to see. When I did that impossible moon phases, I should probably bring that up because this is pertinent to this. The only way in which you can make it work is if you have that vision as well. Otherwise, the moon phases are impossible. But within their modelled claim, you see, you're able to see there. The night sky is represented there, which is, to me, that's the weakest part of their another weak part of it. Their claim denies reality, on just common sense. As Brian says, look, really, you can see there, even though you've already admitted by drawing your tangent what you can see. But that's how they do it, and then transpose it down. Like I said, same for the moon positions, Brian.
Yeah, exactly. This is what they're claiming you can do. They're claiming you can do this. And this would be, if you're standing on their globe Earth, this would be looking directly through a geometric globe Earth. This is what they're claiming you can do. It doesn't, like you can, they want to move it as far away as possible. If I try and move it, sorry, hold these away. And they want to say because these are moved away, that you will be able to see them. This is what they want to claim.
Is it above or below zero? It's below zero line.
It's below zero.
Angle. Yeah, so it's not.
Always going to be a minus angle, yeah.
You zoom right in. Now zoom up to the actual observer and you see how impossible that line becomes, because look.
Yeah, it's going through, even on a globe, it's going through so globe or flat, you can never see below that point.
No.
This is why our claim is ridiculous.
Below what? Sea level? Zero?
Well, yeah, that's the lowest point you can see. You can't see anything past sea level. That is the lowest point we know of. That's always zero.
So sea level would be level, whereas the sphere Earth would have a geometric horizon falling away at 8 inches per mile squared, observable at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. The geometric horizon we debunked in 2020. So they don't have that, but what they do have is a perspective view that gives you a zero line, and that references things like sea level. Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Yeah, that's the point, that these stars have a fixing when you move it to the centre of the Earth below the sea level. Look, they're then attributed below that line because they're taken to the centre of the Earth. But that's why where they're trying to place them in the first place on the ball, that makes it. This is the point that makes it impossible. Look, that line.
And with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, hit the PayPal link and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on a Premiering stream, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!